This podcast is sponsored by Xgrowth. Xgrowth is the APAC ABM agency. If you and your organization are looking to land and expand enterprise mid-market deals, Xgrowth is the agency to help. Xgrowth works with a wide range of international and global technology vendors, service providers, and B2B SaaS companies. If this sounds like something you're interested to know more about, make sure to check out Xgrowth at xgrowth.com.au. That's xgrowth.com.au and chat with the APAC ABM agency.
What's up, marketers, and welcome to another episode of the Growth Colony podcast. I'm Liza from Xgrowth to tell you that each episode we bring in B2B leaders to chat about how you can achieve those everyday wins in the marketing world. Whether you're new to the B2B game, working at a leadership level, or even just showing some interest, we know you'll love the episode. So grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode. I'm Shaheen Hoda with Xgrowth, and today I'm talking to Bronwyn Karaglu, Global VP of Marketing at Ignition, about how should you as marketers approach and talk to your CFOs in 2023. This year is proving to be a challenging one, especially for marketers in the tech space with the layoffs and tighter budgets and everything that's happening. And it's during these times that your relationship with your CFO is going to be tested. That's why I'm super looking forward to this conversation and exploring the topic with Bronwyn. Bronwyn, thanks a lot for jumping on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Shane. It's really good to be here.
No, super excited.
Yeah, it's super exciting to be here. You're right. It's a tough market out there, but very confident that marketers can have a really great relationship with their CFOs and navigate this interesting time.
It's dark times, and they say, they don't want to be too dark. They say is there's always light at the end of the tunnel, or it's always darkest before it goes completely pitch dark. So you could take that two ways, but. I want to dive into the topic, right? And I want to know, in your opinion, what are the main areas marketers need to think about when it comes to finance?
So it's really important that you need to understand the financial metrics ultimately that make a great business or your business a success. And there's no one better to be able to help you do that than your CFO or your CEO and help you navigate through those. So in fact, all great businesses are actually looking at these metrics on a monthly, if not a daily basis. So, that should be top priority if you don't have that within your business right now to get that up and running in a dashboard of some sort. For our business being a software and payments platform for professional services businesses, so we focus on metrics across both, the top of funnel, adoption, SaaS expansion, and retention, but, very much on the metrics that see us extend through the value chain as well, like payment revenue, payment attach rates, and revenue under management. And so, marketers actually really need to be able to attribute the dollars, both in program and people, and how that ladders up to the revenue of the business. So, that's really key. And, a misconception oftentimes is that, and it's super interesting from employees in many sort of tech businesses, is that, the business operates in technology as like profitable, right? Like, oh, we should be profitable right about now. And, the reality is any sort of venture-backed business that hasn't gone public or has been sold, is probably not profitable and still growing. So that's also super important to keep in mind, right? And so the key there is then to grow sustainably. And I think that's the holy grail this year, right? It's like the jury's out, especially with, all of the uncertainty in markets right now. It's like, how do you grow sustainably? And so, there's fundamental principles, I suppose. Sorry if I'm going, I love this topic.
No, this is great. This is good stuff. I'm all ears.
So, they're fundamental principles that mean, the business is sustainable. So if you think about it in marketing, it's all about the cost of acquisition of a new customer, which is a combination of the program spend, the people cost essentially, which is both sales and marketing. And that's divided by then the number of new customers that have been acquired. So that's like an absolute metric you have to keep on top of, right? And now that cost needs to be sustainable. So you'll hear like terms like payback, for example. Many marketers will talk about that, or the businesses might talk about that. And as marketers in B2B, you should know all about that, because that's all about sustainability. So, payback is really how long in the number of months you'll be able to pay back that customer based on what you've spent. And if you're doing anything between 12 and 18 months, you are good. If you do lower than 12 months, you're in a very good place, because that essentially means that you're super sustainable. So yeah, these are some of the metrics that obviously we look at. LTV to CAC is another one that a lot of marketers will, refer to. That's really great, because essentially it's telling you how many times your lifetime value of the customer, you've got in relative to your cost, right? So your cost should be, much, much lower essentially to the lifetime value. And if you've got anything over 3, that's good, I suppose. But where you want to end up, is sort of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Some businesses are at 13 LTV to CAC. And so a lot of marketers will be like, oh, I'm just aiming for 3 to 1. Nope. Sustainable.
That's the minimum. That's the minimum.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see I can go on and on about that sort of stuff.
No, this is really good. And Bronwyn, what are your thoughts on, one of the things that has helped me dramatically increase my business understanding was a simple accounting course. Like I when I was doing MBA, there was the accounting course that I took, and I think that was the most valuable course that I did. And it gave me a very clear understanding of the business numbers. And I feel like marketers don't need to do an MBA. If you do a simple accounting course, just gonna open up your horizons and open up your understanding of the business drastically. What are your thoughts of understanding accounting as a, obviously not going in detail. You don't need to become an accountant and do your, do yours
Basic
and your family
principles.
taxes and all that stuff. But yeah, exactly. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my gosh. Look, it's so interesting, because when I was doing my business course and, my BCom in marketing management all those years ago, don't want to say how old I am. I remember doing accounting, right, for two years, and thinking, what the hell has this got to do with marketing? Please, what is this? And I hated it. It's so interesting, because now I really embrace working so closely on the finances. But I remember just thinking, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? Why do I need to know about, debits and credits and all of these parts of the accounting, principles? And I realize now that it's actually fundamental. If you, as a marketing leader, head of marketing, VP marketing, whatever you might be, if you're not attuned with that whole system, I would definitely say an accounting course would be a great step in the right direction. I mean, I've been really lucky though, because I think, there's one thing about sort of learning about the principles, and then I think it's about learning from people that apply the principles on a day-to-day basis. And I've been so lucky in my career, because I've learned from CEOs and CFOs along the way that have really distilled down the P&L, what they look at, the why behind the numbers and the metrics. And so I think that's, if you can partner up with your CFO or your financial controller, or somebody that will be able to, or your CEO, somebody that will be able to distill it down for you, that is also worth more than, it's worth gold.
Do the foundations through a course, and then partner with someone who owns the finances and tell them to explain to you. I love that. That's I think if we send that message, I think we're pretty much done for the podcast. That message is valuable enough
There you
for
go.
itself.
Take that.
Exactly. But I will not let you go that easily. The other question that I wanted to ask, I'd love to get a bit of an insight in terms of how you go about with your budgeting, right? Having a VP role, a global role. How are you approaching budgeting, especially for 2023?
Well, 2023 budget is done and dusted. So, this was set well in advance. We had our board meeting in January and it was approved. So the plan was approved. But to get there, there was quite a few components and pieces. I mean, like I've alluded to before, the flavor is not growing at all costs. So it's very much about sustainable growth and taking your data and having that inform your strategy, and to have a very clear and crisp approach to how you're going to experiment, what you do in circumstances where things might not be going to plan as well. So your budget absolutely needs to align with, your programs, and you need to be able to attribute your programs to revenue and the spend. So, if you haven't done that part of the work, it's really important that you do. I hear, every marketing leader out there, sigh, inherently around this attribution issue, because obviously, it's hard to attribute the revenue, right? But you need to have an approach. The way that I've done that at Ignition is, and really I want to shout out to my amazing revenue ops manager, Ines, because I could not live without her. But we have a campaigns view, essentially, and that's how we have attributed all of our programs. So every channel has a campaign. It gives us a way to attribute the integratedness of campaigns, but also the always on channels and the way that is meaningful. And, we did a big exercise last year whereby we aligned the budget and our GLs. So this is just codes within the budget by the programs that we were going to run, so that we can really effectively track that month over month. And we have a very close eye on program CAC overall, so which is program spend divided by the number of customers. And we have a sort of rolling CAC view in terms of that, so that we can keep a really close eye on that. And, these are the conversations that I need to then bubble up to my CFO around how we're spending and how we're doing and how we're tracking.
For those who might not be familiar, can you explain rolling CAC?
Yeah, so this is just taking a rolling average of your spend as an example. So we do a rolling program CAC, which is basically just looking at program costs. So that's the rolling spend, total spend of marketing spend, and we divide that by the number of customers, and we've actually been able to break that down by program as well. So then I have accountable people within my team that are looking at that very, very closely, so we can keep a very close eye on that, as I've got a global team, multi-markets to look after.
How do you decide what programs / campaigns / channels get what budget?
Well, it's based off 2022's results and our anticipated programs that we want to run, right? So there are conversion rates all the way through the funnel that help us identify where we're going to land from a new customer perspective, what we need to spend, and then we've had to stress test that against the program CAC and whether that makes sense from a sustainable growth perspective. And that's how it's been developed for this year. A lot of what we're doing this year is less experimental, is more scaling and optimization. So,
right.
Yeah.
Got it. So look at what's happened last year, understand the CACs and the kind of customers that came through, and then this year has been okay. Got it.
Yeah. And conversion rates all the way through the funnel, right? Because, depending on what your motion is, maybe you're a PLG motion, maybe you've got a sales team. In my case, I've got both. So really it's also working with the rest of the business on, their effective programs and what they could move, in terms of those conversion rates, that also changes how much you can spend within these parameters. So for example, if your product team is working on expansion strategies that are going to increase your average revenue per account, then you can potentially be spending more depending on where these sort of programs come into play. So yeah, it's definitely not just a marketing built budget. Essentially, it's multifunctional, and at the end of the day, how you come to the to the table with the rest of your executive team is to have the status quo, present the plan, and see how you can then adjust to grow more. Yeah.
Bronwyn, you talked about attribution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how it's really challenging to attribute stuff. Mm-hmm. And you do that through programs and looking at it more holistically. Can you unpack that a little bit more?
Yeah. Every marketer is just going shuddering.
Yes.
We hate the word.
I know.
The word. We shudder at the word. It's funny. I used to have like a very, very strong opinion on how we should attribute. And that's has changed over the years. Like, it's changed a lot. So I think I'll just say a caveat to say that every approach should suit your business. So for example, we are high velocity sales. We look at a first touch approach. We have a rewrite every 12 months because we don't consider channels prior to that. So if you are, say, for example, if you have 13 months ago come through and let's say a campaign that was, or a webinar campaign, we will rewrite you at this point in time because we want to make sure that we spend next year effectively. These are some of the trade-offs and approaches that you can work with your CEO and CFO on that will suit your business. But like, for example, I absolutely would not suggest that as an approach for enterprise. Enterprise is multi-touch points, and you are absolutely going to need an approach there that matches your sales motion and velocity, right? So our high velocity sales motion, this is what works for us. It's based on first touch. We have influence of partners and other sort of teams that we look at very closely. But if I look at dollars to output, it's all to do with that approach that we have agreed at an executive level in terms of that attribution. So it's not your first touch in 2014 was, I don't know, direct mail or whatever it might be. We don't consider that as anything at this point in time. And that's the approach that I've taken, and that's what works for our business. But I don't think there's a one approach fits all.
Yeah, right. Interesting. So every 12 months, refresh that and then just go through the database and any new contacts that are required. Yeah. Boom. And if nothing happens with those in 12 months' time, same thing.
Correct. And it's a small portion of our, database. We have a huge runway, especially in North America, like 92%, let's say, more sometimes, most of the time, are brand new to Ignition anyway. So this is but I assume over time it's going to change. But yeah.
How do you approach from a headcount perspective, right? If you wanted to, and I know this is now tricky right now because a lot of tech companies, there are a lot of layoffs and businesses are becoming more efficient and so on and so forth. But if you were to add a new member to your team, how do you go about justifying that?
This is tough. This is very, very tough in the current environment. Ignition, we had to make some really tough calls in the last couple of months too, looking at each of our regions, being really clear about what our unit economics, our overarching business outlook, and how we're going to succeed, and obviously make sure that we're set up for a really bright future. And, of course, part of that is now, okay, so now how do you put forward these business cases for new headcount if they're required, right? For me, it's really about how do you tie that back into the program and the ROI you have to. I think this year it's critical. The trick is, in my view, is, and perhaps Mark Bartels, my CFO, might be like, maybe not, I don't know. But in any case, the trick is, in my view, is that you got to think like they do, right? In this environment, which is, that means financially, it needs to make sense. It needs to make undoubted sense to hire, essentially. And so that the benefits have to absolutely outweigh the costs, and substantially. So I always bring in alternative views. So if you are going to go together, to your CFO, your CEO, and you want to put forward a new headcount, I always bring in a balanced view. It's really, really important that you do there. So there are always other options, agencies, vendors, and that cost can oftentimes be more expensive than hiring. But, you've also got to come into the view of, yes, but potentially long term, you haven't really, ensured that you are not experimenting and that this is actually something that you want long term. So if you want to experiment, potentially you've got to think about these external agencies and vendors and things like that. And you need to bring that balanced view to your CEO and CFO to identify whether that's the right way forward. And so, yeah, it's a little bit of longevity, ROI, business case, and then options. And so that there's a balanced view, you can have the conversation, and then you agree and you commit, or you disagree and you commit, but you go forward.
Interesting. I really like the approaching it from different options, bringing multiple different perspectives to the equation and to the conversation to get a better understanding. What are some of the skills that you've developed over time that have allowed you to have these financial conversations with your CFO? We touched on some of these, but I'd love to explore. If there's more, I'd love to explore further.
Yeah, so I've said I've had some really, in my career, I've had, and in my degree, I've had opportunities to learn about accounting and all sorts of things like that. I've had some amazing mentors along the way, and that includes CEOs and CFOs along the way. So to really understand what makes a business tick, essentially. And I'm still learning, just FYI, in case anybody thinks that I'm some expert, I'm not. So, but I think one of the most important observations that I've had is that, and something that I would have told my younger self is, you need to understand the role of the CFO. You need to understand the role of the CEO. You actually don't need to understand your role as much as you need to understand their role at the end of the day to get these skills. So for example, there's also an understanding of the different stages of like the role of the CFO, for example. So, if you're thinking about them, you're thinking about, they just provide financials of the business. Nope. They're reporting to the board. They're the storyteller of the business. They are talking about sales. You have to engage with them to help them with that storytelling piece. They're thinking about raising capital potentially. They're thinking about, all of the metrics that move throughout the funnel. They're thinking about expansion. They're thinking about retention. They're thinking about the whole business, right? And I think that was a penny drop moment for me, probably in my 20s. And I wish I'd told myself that earlier, get a really good understanding of what it is that makes these roles tick. Because, if you have a good understanding, then you can help them and you'll be more effective as a result. So understand the CFO role. That's my advice. And one of the other things that sort of helped me, I would say, I sort of took the Amazon approach to, focus on the input metrics rather than the output metrics. So that was also fundamental in terms of my thinking. And that was, really what are the metrics that you can move that will get your company to these output metrics that they want. The output metrics might be, for example, new customers, and input metrics at a high level marketing is high intent leads and qualified opportunities and things like that. But more than that, how does everybody in your team, contribute to an input metric that will get you to those output metrics for the business? Same with retention, same with expansion. Yeah, Shane, that's probably
those are great points. I mean, having input versus output mentality and having control, kind of the accounting courses and then having great mentors and putting yourself in the shoes of a CFO. Very,
Yes.
very valuable. I have some rapid fire questions that I want to ask you. Before we dive into that, is there anything else that maybe I haven't asked that you think it's important for us to cover?
I feel like you've really covered it.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. I've done my job.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Have you read the State of ABM and APAC report yet? If you have, you'll know that 59% of marketing leaders are intending to increase their ABM investment in the coming year. Even bigger news is 0% of survey respondents are going to decrease their investment. It's an exciting time for ABM in the region. Discover the state of account-based marketing in APAC today. Download the full report at abm.xgrowth.com.au/report. That's abm.xgrowth.com.au/report.
All right, let's do some rapid fire questions, okay? So the first thing is, what is one resource? It could be a book, a blog, a podcast, whatever it is, that has had a profound impact on the way you work or live.
Yeah, so Morning Brew, which is a blog, which I absolutely love because it's got this raw intellectual humor and then kind of gives you that full overview of basically the US. So like I've been very focused on international marketing for a long time and I needed to have a really good grasp on the US. It's always been that way. Yeah, it's a great blog. And, you know, for me, I wake up in the morning, I read this, I get a good understanding. It's kind of like, it really, you know, it's humorous, like I enjoy it. And that's changed my life. Yeah. So I would say that's fun. Morning Brew.
Yes. Sign up to Morning Brew.
Yeah.
Awesome. If you could give one advice to B2B marketers, what would it be?
You need a network. You need a network of people. Basically, Rome was not built, you know, alone, just in case anybody was thinking it was one Roman. And I think that's such a key learning for all of us marketers is we're not the first ones to solve the problem. Like, even though it feels like you're the first one, you're definitely not. And so having the network of people that you can take for a coffee and swap notes on, like, I think that's the biggest piece of advice, 100%. People, teamwork, yeah, makes the dream work.
I love it. Who are some of the influencers in the marketing space that you follow?
You know, like I'm going to sound so bad because I don't follow a lot of influencers. Like I think that there are so many great marketers out there that influence me, you know, like I've got a big network of other marketers and other marketing leaders that I follow and they influence me. But, you know, if I have to think about an influencer that has made me think about the go-to-market in a really different way and that inspires me, it's Dave Wan, who is from Tidemark, and he's a partner. So it's all VC, but, you know, at the end of the day, I think he's brilliant. He's worked with all of these great businesses like Toast, for example, and he writes these amazing theses on how to extend through the value chain. And, you know, yeah, he totally inspires me, Dave Wan. Mm-hmm. Such a smart guy.
All right. No, that's awesome. I'll definitely check him out. And it's Dave Wan from where? What was that?
Tidemark. Yeah, the
Tidemark.
Yeah.
I haven't come across him. I'll definitely check him out. All right.
Yeah, check him out. Yeah, he's so interesting. And yeah. So,
Last question is, what's something that excites you about B2B today?
B2B marketing or B2B?
B2B. Let's talk B2B overall.
You know what's exciting about B2B? I think I'm more excited by the B2B, like small business space, if I must be honest, because I think technology is completely democratizing the way that these small businesses are able to engage. They don't even need these huge teams to compete, right? It's just that excites me a lot. But this is, you know, not B2B in an overview. Gosh, I don't know. I think it's more in that space, just technology, I suppose, and just the way that we are starting to, you know, utilize these new technologies to elevate these businesses. So you've got more time to do other things, which always means there's more growth and more opportunity.
I love it. Bronwyn, this has been an awesome conversation.
Thank you.
I took away some great points, and also there were some great reminders I love the input metric, output metric, Amazon conversation that you brought up, but also a lot of other insights that you've talked about. And I'm sure a lot of people, especially at this time in the kind of environment we're in, are going to get a lot of benefits. So really appreciate you coming on the podcast and your time. And thank you so much for all the insights.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Today's episode of Growth Colony was produced by Alexander Hipwell and Liza Maywald. It was edited by Dave Samito with additional editing by Liza Maywald and music arrangement by Alexander and Liza. Special thanks to Tina Wabe. We couldn't make the show without you. Growth Colony is hosted by Shaheen Hoda, Director of Growth at Xgrowth. If you enjoy the podcast, please subscribe and give us a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Do you think you'd be a great guest or just keen for a chat? Send through an email at podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's podcast@xgrowth.com.au. That's all for now. We'll catch you next week, right here on Growth Colony.